This latest revelation could apply serious pressure on Keir Starmer to resign, and if there's any truth to the allegations, and he is the man of integrity that he says he is, then he will do so, and he will resign, because in his own words, you cannot be a lawmaker and a law breaker. And all of this coming about from the COVID restrictions. You've had Partygate, you then had Beergate, now I bring you Voice Coach Gate. I will explain, trust me. And in the second half of the video, this Labour government appears to be working against itself in this battle against what they call irregular, otherwise known as illegal migration, in that they are undoing many of the rules that are designed to restrict and discourage irregular or illegal migration. More about that in the second half of the video. But first of all, if you are new to me, I'm Daniel Shensmith. I'm a barrister. I hope to bring you an objective and independent, yet sometimes brutal analysis of what's going on in the news, and hopefully fill in some gaps here and there. So I'd be really grateful if you subscribe to the channel, because I am independent. I depend on you, the viewer. I don't have a big media conglomerate behind me. I depend on you. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Now, where do we start? Let's start right at the beginning. Now, many people were obviously very upset with all the COVID restrictions because they didn't get to see each other, and in the worst possible cases, they didn't get to see loved ones before they died because of the restrictions. And they honoured those restrictions. They complied with the rules and they obeyed the law. Many of us didn't agree with the law, but we complied with it nonetheless. Now, then we had Partygate. This was Boris Johnson, and accused of attending party gatherings and such which violated those lockdown rules. It was referred to as a boozy party at Downing Street during the lockdown period when, as I say, everybody else complied with the rules and didn't gather with each other. During the second lockdown and on another occasion in Tier 3 restrictions, again said to have had these parties. The outcome of all of that was that the Metropolitan Police investigated, and they indeed fined Boris Johnson, if you recall, for attending I think was a birthday party for himself at Downing Street, all part of this investigation into multiple gatherings, and this was ultimately the end of all of that investigation. Then we had Beergate. This was Keir Starmer, the subject of his own allegations of breaking lockdown rules. This was where I believe he was photographed drinking beer at an MP's gathering in Durham, again during restrictions at a local election campaign in 2021. And again, this centred around whether or not he breached those social gathering restrictions at the time. Now, there was an investigation by Durham Constabulary, and they ultimately said, well, after significant new information they said came to light, they reopened an investigation. Although ultimately, after a statement from Labour that this was a permissible work event and an investigation by the police, they said that there was no case to answer, saying that there was an exemption to the lockdown rules for reasonably necessary work. Now, make of that what you will, but Keir Starmer and Labour said that this was a work event with a pause for food, and thus said that there was no rules actually broken. Keir Starmer did say, however, that he would have stepped down had he been fined for his attendance at this event, saying that integrity matters and he would have stepped down as a matter of principle. He said that it shouldn't be controversial to say that those who make the law cannot break the law, he said at a press conference. And that'll be important when we consider the allegations that have come to light just recently. So cue a letter from Richard Holden, MP, which I will take you to now, and I give you Voice Coach Gate. Let's take a look at this letter, which sets out what these allegations are. The letter says that the Sunday Times reported on a book that said Keir Starmer met with a voice coach, Leonie Mellinger, during Tier 4 lockdown. It says, you have said several times that since the first COVID lockdown, you've followed all the rules. You've said in the past that to casually break the rules would have been a mistake, and that you said, I've been clear what leadership looks like. I have not broken any rules, and any attempt to compare a perfectly legal takeaway while working to this catalogue for criminality looks even more ridiculous today. But if the police decide otherwise, I will do the decent thing and step down. This taken from Hansard, which is a record of things said in Parliament. And that, of course, referring back to that gathering that we're talking about that the Durham police investigated. Back to the letter, it says, this latest revelation proves this not to be the case, and you have serious questions to answer. The excerpt in the Sunday Times says Starmer, considered her, the voice coach role, so essential that Mellinger even qualified for key worker status during the pandemic. She visited Labour headquarters in a mask on Christmas Eve in 2020, advising Starmer as he considered his response to Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. On the 24th of December 2020, London and the southeast of England were in Tier 4 of regional COVID lockdowns. Labour Party HQ at the time was in Westminster. In Tier 4, the restrictions included everyone must work from home unless they are unable to do so. There should be no household mixing aside from support bubbles and 2 people meeting in public outdoor spaces. This taken directly from the government's own press release. These were restrictions made in law under coronavirus regulations, the Coronavirus Health Protection, etc. A breach of them would be a breach of the law. At the time of the Tier 4 restrictions, the sanction at the time for breaching the restrictions was a fixed penalty notice. An offence under the regulations is summary only, punishable with an unlimited fine. Will you answer these questions? This letter says. Does the Prime Minister think that this is a breach of the law? To clear up any date, will you appoint an independent advisor? I believe this is what happened first from Partygate. Did the Labour Party receive legal advice about how to get around COVID regulations? In this period, did Miss Mellinger contract COVID-19? Furthermore, the Sunday Times also reports that Starmer considered Mellinger's role so essential that Mellinger even qualified for key worker status during the pandemic. However, qualification for key worker status was only relevant for administrative occupations that extended to the essential delivery of COVID-19 response and those which were essential to public services. The provision, therefore, of a voice coach is not a qualifier. This is set out in the guidance at the time. Local and national government, this only includes those administrative occupations essential to the effective delivery of COVID-19 response, essential public services such as payment of benefits, including government agencies at arm's length bodies. Will you answer these further questions? Do you think it would be right for other members of the public to get acting lessons during Tier 4 restrictions? Did you receive legal advice about making Miss Mellinger a key worker? There is strong public interest in your conduct during the pandemic, and it is clear from these revelations that not only have you misled the public, but you have a casual disregard for the law at a time when so many people were making such difficult sacrifices, all in the service of advancing your own political career. You have said honesty and decency matters. I hope you'll treat these questions to you with the same standards you ask of others. And I would add to that the same response that he had to others, because his response to Boris Johnson was absolutely crystal clear. He said multiple times that he should resign because he'd broken the rules. Now, these allegations coming directly from Richard Holden MP to Keir Starmer, following the report in the Sunday Times with these claims in the book that he broke the rules, would be pretty much the same thing. So these are, without doubt, allegations of exactly the same thing that he would have asked others to resign for. So if all of this is sufficiently investigated and it turns out that he broke any of these rules, will that be sufficient pressure to force Keir Starmer to resign? That is, of course, what he would have expected of others had they done exactly the same thing. And if all of that wasn't bad enough, wait until you hear what this Labour government wants to do to the illegal migration laws for this country. And it is illegal migration because it's referred to under the Illegal Migration Act. More about that in just a moment. Don't go away. A quick aside and a bit of a success story. One of my viewers sent me an email to say that they were concerned about a security risk on their browser on their computer, that when they were clicking links, they noticed in the URL bar at the top that it was redirecting them through some other kind of website, some shop or something or other. Obviously, it shouldn't have been doing that. They were worried that it was nefarious and malware of some sort. So I recommended that they install NordVPN, because I've recommended NordVPN many times on this channel and I partner with them to do so. And sure enough, my viewer downloaded and installed and used NordVPN, and immediately it flagged up that there was malware on the browser, something to do with one of the extensions or other, and it blocked it. And so then thereafter they felt much more secure that that was now blocking those extensions, because NordVPN is a secure and encrypted virtual private network. It connects you remotely through a server and protects all of your internet access, and they don't keep any logs of anything you do online. And not only does it it comes with a password manager, but more importantly, it comes with threat protection, which means it blocks malware and trackers and other ads that you might not know are running in the background, which collect information about you, feed it to somebody else, and they might be selling it on to other parties, but it may be even more nefarious than that. It might be attempts to hack your computer with what they call a man-in-the-middle attack, taking information that you might submit to websites and things like that. So my viewer, when they activated it, it blocked this immediately, and they now feel much more secure that their information is not being leaked to other parties. So not only will you be much more secure when you're browsing the internet, not just at home, but particularly out in public, connecting to public Wi-Fi's. You have no idea whether you can trust those or not. And it even comes with a private cloud storage, so you can store and share your own files with yourself remotely and securely if you're out and about. And of course, as a partner to my channel, I get you a fantastic discount, which is 4 months extra free off your plan using the code BBB with the link that's on screen and in the description below. And of course, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee in case you change your mind. But for less than the price of a cup of coffee, it'll be peace of mind knowing that you are browsing the internet securely, whether you're at home, on all your devices, or out and about in public. So check out the link in the description below, and thank you to Nord for sponsoring this video. Okay, back to illegal migration and how, in my view, this Labour government is undoing all of the mechanisms that are designed to deter and prevent illegal migration to the UK. And in fact, it's far worse than that. It reopens pathways for those that enter the UK illegally to have a pathway to citizenship. Now, all of this has to be taken against the backdrop of what I've discussed in previous videos. For example, this bit here, where they've announced a partnership with Tunisia where they are going to educate and upskill would-be migrants who are still in Tunisia to make them more employable in Tunisia so they don't get tempted to come to the UK via all the countries in between. You'll remember I couldn't quite believe that I was reporting this to you, but they've announced this new package of £5 million to educate and upskill those in Tunisia to discourage them from coming here, and an additional £1 million to this International Organisation for Migration's Assisted Voluntary Returns and Reintegration Programme to support transiting migrants who've no legal right to be in Tunisia and return them and reintegrate them to their own country. So we're even giving them money to help sort out their own migration problems. So against all of that backdrop, all of this arm's length and quite tangential effort to discourage migration to the UK, quite the reverse, this bill is going to make it very much more attractive, in my view. Because remember, not long ago we had voted through the Illegal Migration Act 2023, which made provisions for the removal of illegal migrants from the UK to a third safe country, for example, Rwanda, etc., and limits on their pathway to citizenship, etc., age checks and various things. Come back to those in a moment. Well, this Labour government has decided that they are going to get rid of most of that in this bill here. The Border Security, ironically labelled Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill. And what this does, among other things, is repeal the Safety of Rwanda Act 2024 and repeal large chunks of the Illegal Migration Act 2023. But what does all that really mean? Well, you'll see from here it says that it's going to repeal large chunks of this act. For example, sections 1 to 6, 7 to 11, 13 to 15, 16 to 28, 30 to 51, etc. This bill says that large chunks of this act are going to be repealed. So let's take a look at exactly what those sections of the Illegal Migration Act do and how they would have deterred migration. And obviously removing that deterrent is only going to serve to encourage people to come to the UK illegally. Now, sections 1 to 6 that are being repealed originally prohibited individuals arriving in the UK illegally from claiming asylum. It required their removal either to their home country or a designated third safe country, for example Rwanda, and repealing these sections obviously will remove this blanket ban on asylum claims, thus making it very much more likely that they'll want to come to the UK and then claim asylum. The detention provisions under sections 7 to 11, the Illegal Migration Act 23 expanded the powers of the Home Secretary to detain and remove migrants without any judicial oversight, but obviously rescinding all of these powers means that they're no longer automatically detained for deportation. The government cannot fast-track these removals, and thus reinstating various procedures and legal challenges, thus allowing them to prolong the procedure, which is one of the tactics they often use to remain in the UK for many, many years. Even when they've committed serious offences, they can legally challenge their removal. Sections 13 to 15 of the Act dealt with the inadmissibility of asylum claims. So these sections declared that migrants arriving illegally were automatically inadmissible for asylum claims. For example, those that had travelled through France before arriving to the UK would not have been eligible to apply for asylum, which is one argument that many people make. If they've come from France, why should they apply for asylum here? Because they were safe in France, etc. But with those sections repealed, obviously that means they can once again have their claims considered. Sections 16 through 28 dealt with the appeal rights and judicial oversight. These sections would remove the rights to appeal deportation orders and restrict legal challenges, etc., and again prevent them from being prolonged. The enforcement measures in sections 30 to 51. Previously, these sections would criminalise those knowingly entering the UK illegally and impose penalties. And of course, the repeal of these would effectively decriminalise the illegal entry into the UK, meaning fewer people will face prosecution for those offences, and that can only serve to encourage rather than discourage illegal arrival in the UK. Crucially, however, the bill would also reverse the provisions that dealt with leave to remain and pathways to citizenship. You see, the Illegal Migration Act 23 inserted a section into the Immigration Act 71 which declared that migrants who entered the UK illegally were permanently ineligible for leave to remain of any kind. But this new bill said that this would never exist, meaning that those arrive illegally can now apply for visas, asylum and other forms of legal stay. This restores the pathways to lawful residency in the UK and thus can only serve to encourage illegal migration to the UK. Far aside from the efforts at arm's length in Tunisia, giving them money to discourage them from making the journey from Tunisia, this gives them a pathway to citizenship in the UK. This has obviously been met with a huge backlash and criticism from a number of MPs and other outlets. Rupert Lowe says, "Appropriate words cannot adequately describe my anger. Every single one of these men should be securely detained and swiftly deported. It will be logistically challenging, it will be costly, and it will be time-consuming. It is, however, absolutely necessary." Quoting the headline here, the PM eases rules for illegal migrants. Again, running directly counter to the arm's length operations of giving money to other countries to help, ostensibly, to deter migration at source. So suffice to say, despite the rhetoric that they are clamping down on illegal migration, this government is actually proposing to water down the rules, reopen the pathways to citizenship, and of course, I almost forgot to mention, they are removing the requirements for scientific age checks, which means 22, 25-year-old men may actually end up in the same locations as children because, lo and behold, they might just lie about their age. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp told The Telegraph this will lead to dangerous young men being placed with teenage girls and make the UK the soft touch of Europe. He says Starmer is a weak Prime Minister. He's weak on borders, and he's weak when it comes to protecting our borders, our children and our people. He says, "I will fight tooth and nail against this craven capitulation to illegal migrants and people smugglers when the bill comes to Parliament." So, respectfully, let me know what you think in the comments, please, but this seems to run counter to everything you are told online about removing migrants, stopping the boats, clamping down on illegal migration, etc. This all seems to be going against the general attitude of the public. In my view, let me know if you think I'm wrong, but that is certainly the view of Rupert Lowe MP when he says the British people didn't vote for mass migration. They don't support mass migration. They don't want mass migration. It has made our country more deprived, more divided and more dangerous. The era of mass migration finally comes to an end at the next election. And I think that is really the only way that's going to happen, if we have a change in government and a government that actually does work to remove illegal migrants from the UK. Now, as my usual caveat, this is not to say that all migrants coming here shouldn't deserve our support. Some of them generally do. I know some people that have come here and escaped desperate situations, and they work very hard here. This is not a blanket statement against all of those. This is genuine, objective legal commentary on this bill, which appears to be undoing many of the rules that are designed to curb illegal migration. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.